Well, the stability of multi-party coalition governments has been thrust into the spotlight. This follows the removal of Dr. Mpho Phalatse as Johannesburg Mayor this week. Coalition partners are accusing the Democratic Alliance of infighting. Gayton McKenzie of the Patriotic Alliance says attempts to remove Phalatse from office were not about other political parties, but squabbles within the main opposition party. What really led to the motion against Phalatse, and is the DA to blame for the collapse? We're joined now by DA spokesperson Celia Benk. Celia, thank you so much for your time this morning. A very good morning to you. I really think at this moment in time, surely the Democratic Alliance must be disappointed at having to have foregone the DA stronghold, really, as executive mayorship within the city of Johannesburg in the form of Dr. Mpho Phalatse, somebody who has been hailed even by some smaller parties as somebody who had just the capabilities of leading but fallen prey to the bigger political party. Let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, surely it's a disappointment to lose her.
Yeah, let's be clear. Mpho Phalatse was not removed in a vote of no confidence because she has failed in service delivery or failed to set an agenda or failed to point out what things need to change. In fact, on the very day that she was removed in a vote of no confidence, her government announced plans to implement programs that would skip 2 to 3 stages of load shedding. So Mpho Phalatse was implementing the DA program and implementing and leading the coalition. She was removed, as we had warned some months ago, as part of an effort by the ANC and their coalition partners to destabilize anyone who has taken from them. This has been relentless. There have been several motions of no confidence. Attempts to appoint a city manager have been blocked. Attempts to get a loan from the DBSA to run the ordinary operations of the government have been blocked. And so this is an unfortunate result of the fragmented results of the 2021 election, but also, more specifically, the betrayal of the Patriotic Alliance. Unfortunately, the DA could not cave to the demands of the Patriotic Alliance and what they demanded at the negotiations. We did not want to compromise our government from within, and the Patriotic Alliance have pulled through with their threat, which has been constant. If you don't give us what we want, if you don't give us the jobs and the patronage to benefit our own politicians, we'll vote with the ANC. And that's what they've done.
But Celia, let's be real here, because we've also had a conversation with the Patriotic Alliance that you've mentioned. We've had conversations with Action SA. And you know what the sentiment is across these political parties is that the Democratic Alliance just refuses to be partners in coalition. That what you want is the majority of the seats, what you want is the majority of the portfolios, or at least the ones that are most influential. And you simply do not know how to be part of a coalition government, how to actually give and take, how to negotiate which portfolios go to which political party at what expense. And you're absolutely correct. Even they've admitted that Dr. Mpho Phalatse was not removed because she can't do a job, that Dr. Mpho Phalatse was in fact a victim of the DA as well as the DA's insistence on not wanting to be a partner with other smaller political parties. How then do you start responding to that? Because it looks as though she could have finished her mandate had the Democratic Alliance, not just Dr. Mpho Phalatse, but had the Democratic Alliance decided to actually have a little bit of room for give and take with negotiation, and also who holds some certain positions of power within the council.
So yes, Faith, I agree with you. Let's get real. There are about 37 or 38 coalitions in the country of which the DA is part. The vast majority of those coalitions are stable and successful. Unfortunately, the ones that are not are the ones where there are a multitude of smaller parties, each demanding a constant renegotiation of positions. Now, if the DA was simply to say, okay, we'll give you what you want, Gayton McKenzie, you can have exactly what you demand, in the interest of compromise, you just determine the terms and we'll accept them. If we agree to that, Faith, we'll be setting up the coalition for failure. Because you know what? You'll constantly be negotiating over positions and favors for politicians instead of concentrating on service delivery, instead of doing what the majority of those successful coalitions across the country have managed to do. Now, you mentioned what Action SA has said about the DA letting down Mpho Phalatse. The fact is they voted against Mpho Phalatse. They put up a candidate, Funzi Ngubeni, to oppose Mpho Phalatse. If they wanted to express their faith and solidarity with her leadership, as the DA did by fielding her once more as a candidate, they would have voted for her. The point is, these are tricks. This is disingenuous. Unfortunately, Action SA has allowed itself to be manipulated by the Patriotic Alliance. The Patriotic Alliance clearly see that Action SA wants to score political points against the DA. But let's get to the specifics of what happened in Joburg. The DA did not demand that we hold X number of positions. We put down 2 negotiations with the Patriotic Alliance. We said in the first instance, you should not be placed in a stronger position than before you stabbed us in the back last year, voted to remove Mpho Phalatse, and then formed a coalition with the ANC. If we rewarded that behavior, we would have guaranteed that it doesn't stop. It would have never stopped. The Patriotic Alliance would have just demanded more and more positions at the expense not only of the DA, but of other parties and the stability and effectiveness of the coalition. The second condition was we didn't want to place the Patriotic Alliance in charge of departments that are especially vulnerable to patronage politics. We know the history of the Patriotic Alliance. They were in charge of the Department of Economic Development before, and their MMC was fired by their ANC partners for interfering in processes and disregarding the separation between party and state. So there was clearly a turf war between the Patriotic Alliance and the ANC. And we didn't want that to happen in the name of the multi-party coalition. We would much rather be in opposition than be compromised from within. Because ultimately, Faith, it would be Mpho Phalatse and the DA that gets blamed for the corruption and mismanagement of the Patriotic Alliance. It wouldn't be them or Action SA. So we had to draw a line, and I think very important lessons need to be learned about the future of coalitions and the formula needed to make it work, especially where the ANC is dislodged from power.
Yeah, but the problem is right now, Sele, as we're speaking, Mpho Phalatse is no longer the mayor of the city of Johannesburg, right? We've got another stop and go and stop and go and stop and go. Now we've got somebody who's been represented by Al Jama'a for how long, God knows, right? Because, as I said, unfortunately, what the city of Johannesburg has taught us is that we cannot be comfortable with the mayor for too long before politics come into play. And I guess the residents of the city of Johannesburg are wondering, dude, where's the stability? If the stability is not there, if city managers are not appointed, if we're busy debating around political positioning, when do we get our services and get them to the absolute optimal? Right now, you're sitting as a DA, but you're still there. You're still players within this. How can coalition governments actually work and work together? Especially when there's a forecast of 2024 around the corner. If we can't get it right in the city of Johannesburg, my goodness, I think the residents of the Republic of South Africa should be afraid of what to anticipate come 2024 should the ANC not have majority within the national elections.
The most important lesson to learn from this disaster in Johannesburg is that huge coalitions with tiny parties do not work. What happened in Joburg is that no single political party, in fact, no single clear coalition got a majority of the vote at the 2021 election. And the DA and our coalition partners, in most of the instances, did our best to put such a governing coalition together. But the point is, for us to offer a credible program of action, for us to say you can trust this government, we must be assured that the government is not compromised from within. So there are many examples of coalitions that work across the country, and usually that starts with a clear majority. The coalition at least must have a clear majority, and you can't sit with 8 or 9 parties in the coalition. Now, what do we do until such a unification of the vote can happen, a defragmentation, you can call it? The DA will do our best as an opposition to make sure that the gains in that government have not been reversed. We'll make sure that people are held accountable. And let me just also say that this marionette, this puppet from Al Jama'a, who has now been elected as the executive mayor, he is unfortunately not going to have an easy ride because he's got so many political masters. He's got the ANC, he's got the EFF, he's got the Patriotic Alliance. He will be pulled hither and thither. And unfortunately, this will have terrible consequences for the people of Johannesburg. And unfortunately, we'll have to learn the hard lessons that if you split the vote between a plethora of parties, you could create chaos, which makes stable, effective government almost impossible. But as I said, the DA will play our best role as the official opposition in this council. to hold that mayor and his government to account and to make sure that the gains that we have made are not completely wiped out.
Yeah, but Celia, what do you as the Democratic Alliance take accountability for? Because the truth of the matter is, and I go back to this, right? Mpho Phalatse was not removed because she's incapable of doing her job. Mpho Phalatse was removed because of the political chess that was being played. And this time around, the Democratic Alliance lost. You lost. And that's just where it is. Then how then do we start ensuring that, let me finish with that. But how then do we start ensuring, right, that the very same accountability that you're wanting to put and place on other smaller parties and the fate of the city of Johannesburg, that you equally in the same breath can say, you know what, maybe here we could have played it better, or maybe here we could have decided better just for the benefit of the city of Johannesburg and its residences. What do you guys take accountability for?
So, Faith, first of all, the Democratic Alliance did not remove Mpho Phalatse. We fielded her as a candidate. So if you want to talk about accountability, you must ask the parties that removed her from power, quite frankly. Ask the Patriotic Alliance. Why have they been jumping between the DA and the ANC and other coalition partners constantly? Ask Al-Jamar why their program of action is not to oppose the ANC as articulated by their mayoral candidate. Of course, the DA is not perfect. We make mistakes. We learn from lessons. What we've learned from these coalitions is that we cannot compromise the integrity of the coalition from within. Sometimes you lose as a political party. You stand by your principles. You say that unless we stick to these conditions, we are going to not just lose the vote, we're going to lose the credibility of coalition government as it is. If we set up coalitions in a way that governs in this ANC patronage style, are going to lose faith in us, they're going to lose faith in coalitions, and they're going to lose faith in the ability of change at the ballot box. So, of course, we've made many mistakes, and we learn from those mistakes. In this particular instance, the Democratic Alliance and many other parties who supported Mpho Phalatse to the end did what we could in the circumstances with what we have to achieve the best outcome for the people of Joburg. We lost. But we'll make the best of that loss by holding those who have won to account.
Celia, much appreciated for your time this morning. Celia.